Don is working on an interesting project in his Toastmasters Tale Weavers Club, another Toastmasters club that he belongs to. He's going through the entire Competent Communicator manual, doing every speech project, and relating them all to Peter Pan. Don planned to do 9 of the speeches with the Tale Weavers Club and 1 speech outside of the Tale Weavers Club. And of all the clubs external from Tale Weavers that he could have given that 10th speech to, he's chosen Results Communicators, where we take our professionalism and our fantasy very seriously. In his speech, Don is going to take us on a journey through the creation and the evolution of Peter Pan. He's going to tell us where the idea came from, and then he will give us other insight about the story of Peter Pan. Would you please help me welcome Don Mathews with his speech number 7, research your topic, 108 Years of Peter Pan. Don Mathews.
Thank you, Dennis. Is there anyone here who has not heard of Peter Pan or the story of Peter Pan? I didn't think so. This is a story that our parents have read to us, we read to our children, we've seen the movies, it is worldwide. Everybody knows about Peter Pan. But I want to know why it got so popular. But first I'm going to tell you how it got started. James Matthew Barrie was the author of Peter Pan. He was born in 1860. He was child number 9 of 10. And his brother David was almost 14 years old when he died in a skating accident. There's nothing worse for a parent to have to go through than the death of their child. His mother was terrified, scared, and James Matthew Barrie took on the role of David. And his mother said often of David, David would be the boy who never grew up. This is where the idea started by James Matthew Barrie. When he was 42, that first idea came into his writings. He wrote a book called Little White Bird. And in there was the first reference of Peter Pan, with a reference of the boy who will never grow up. In 1904, in December, he staged a play called Peter Pan, and it was an instant hit. Other people wanted to reproduce that play and do it as well. It grew like wildfire, and in 1911 he published the first novel, Peter and Wendy, and it was also a major success, being translated into many, many, many languages. One of the best children's literature out there at the time. It was later renamed to be Peter Pan, but the original book was Peter and Wendy. In 1924, they decided to make a silent movie of Peter Pan. It was basically the play of Peter Pan, but done very well. In fact, Walt Disney, when he was a boy, saw the play Peter Pan and was immediately immersed in Peter Pan. He loved the play. And when he was building his Disney empire, he had the wish to animate Peter Pan. He bought the licenses in the 1940s, but because of World War II, had putting on delay. But he was tenacious in getting it done. In 1953, the animated version of Peter Pan came out, and it is still available for purchase and rent today through Disney. Now, Peter Pan, both the character and the play, have been influential in many other areas. For example, there were 3 thoroughbred racehorses named Peter Pan. The first one was in 1904, right when the play came out. There is the Peter Pan bus lines, Peter Pan peanut butter, there is Peter Pan records, and then in 1960 there was Operation Peter Pan, trying to get the children from Cuba into Miami who were at risk with Fidel's regime. Then there's also the Peter Pan syndrome. This was in 1983. A doctor came up with this syndrome of grown men who would never grow up. Well, they were people, but mostly it was grown men. But shortly after that came the books. Wendy's Dilemma, Wendy's Club, and these were books for women who were hooked on men that had the Peter Pan syndrome and how they can cope with men like this. All very interesting stuff. But with all this popularity of Peter Pan all these years, doesn't it make you wonder who's making the money? James Matthew Barrie died in 1937. He's not making the money. Who do you think is making the money from Peter Pan right now? Anybody want to guess?
Disney.
Incorrect. But that was the guess I was hoping you were going to say. Disney. No, Disney is not the owner of the Peter Pan rights. In fact, James Matthew Barrie bequeathed all the rights to Peter Pan to the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital in London. And for all this time, they are the ones, the recipients of the royalties, the licensing, the copyrights, everything.
Wow.
And there's quite a few other interesting things about this, was that Disney, in one of the documentaries I was watching about the making of Peter Pan, they said, we obtained all the rights to Peter Pan. But what they actually got was just the license, an exclusive license to do the animation for Peter Pan. Now, the hospital never discloses how much money is brought in, and this was a request by Mr. Barrie. They didn't want that money, that number disclosed to how much money the hospital is bringing in. But it does say on their website that although we can't disclose it, we will say that it is not a major funding source for the hospital. So they have other ways around it. The other thing is the copyright for Peter Pan expired in 2007. Now, does that mean that the hospital's making no more money from Peter Pan? Nope, because royalties are in perpetuity, meaning as long as there's a play that you want to put on Peter Pan, you will have to pay a royalty to put that play on. Also, the hospital authorized a sequel for Peter Pan. It's called Peter Pan in Scarlet, and that book came out, I believe, in 2006. And they own the copyright to that book for the next 70 years. So when I was researching the history of Peter Pan, I really wanted to know why Peter Pan was so popular. The psychologists seemed to not even read the book. And then the feminists just complain about the unfairness of the book. Oh, and then there's the racial issues. And I thought, but even all these people still like Peter Pan, and they reference Peter Pan, and they like Peter Pan. So all I have to do is go back to my own personal experience with Peter Pan. The first time I saw the play, flying. It wouldn't be just great to be able to fly. The dream of flying, and the other, of course, never having to grow up. In other words, having fun all the time. And who doesn't want to have fun? Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, John.